of Christmas and how it's being celebrated here in the Niger Delta region. We're not just going to be here alone. We're being joined by Mr. Marvel Essien. He is an organization development consultant. Mr. Essien, you're welcome on Niger Delta Today. And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, Samuel.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
Mr.
Christmas,
Marvel.
Stefan.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, there's an outpouring of good wishes. Leaders alike and even citizens have not spared breath in talking extensively about the Christmas and indeed what it represents to them, even though there are quarters who are complaining bitterly about the realities that we are seeing on ground. People are indeed happy and are hopeful that a better days ahead. But then, what do you make of 2024 celebration of Christmas?
Samuel, better days are truly ahead. When you look at the situation in Nigeria and you see the policies of government and the direction that the nation is moving to, it's worthy to say better days are ahead. But for this 2024 celebration, we are in for a time that you would say maybe is an austerity celebration, because the purchasing power of individuals have dropped tremendously, and we're not seeing the kind of glamour that we used to see in years back when activities used to be very high. You know, Niger Delta is dominated by Christians, and when you want to measure or test the effect of Christmas, or the power of Christmas, is in the Niger Delta region in Nigeria that you feel it most, because of the dominance of Christians in the Niger Delta region. But in 2024, we are not having that glamour as we used to have due to the economic situation in the nation. But however, we are still having celebrations in the villages, in towns, cultural displays, and you see state governments mobilizing people, mobilizing their citizens to celebrate Christmas, and you have so many things to see, from the Christendom to the cultural dances, cultural displays, and all the activities that normally goes with Christmas. We're still having a tint of heat here and there, even though it might not be as it used to be.
Oh, Mr. Marvel, we live at a time where it appears like a lot of people have lost the essence of Christmas. Let me start by asking you, what does Christmas mean to you as an individual?
As if I wasn't expecting that question to me. however, for me, Christmas means eating, drinking, celebrating it, being happy, staying around my family. That's what it means. But you see, maybe you want to ask me to speak about the Christian aspect of it. I'll also talk about recognizing Christmas as a time for reconciliation. I picked that from my parents, that no matter what anybody had done to you, that on 24th December, you should come together. And of course, today I'm the head of my family, and I try to also implement that. So wherever I am, on the 24th of December, I should find myself home and gather my family people together for reconciliation. That is to say that the real essence of this season for me is a season of stock taking. You look at your life, you look back, you review what you have done from January till now. Look at the values that you say on the 31st of December, you hear a lot of people starting to make
New
Year resolutions. So those things are important. So when it comes to a time like this, you look back, what did you resolve to do this year? How far have you accomplished? What goals did you set for yourself? Your career, your personal goals and all that. How have you accomplished them? But the most important part of it is reconciliation.
All right, Mr. Marvel, sorry for cutting you, but then that reminds me of one of the very key outstanding content of the Senate President's wish to Nigerians as regards the celebration. He spoke distinctively about the fact that Christmas is a period where you have to share, you spread love. and you don't just withhold whatever it is you have, especially for those that are well placed. Now, the Bayelsa State Governor Doye Diri also re-echoed this particular point, that government officials, persons that are well placed, should be able to spread love as much as possible, especially for those that are less privileged at this time. I mean, we don't need a soothsayer to tell us what is happening in the polity currently. To what extent do you believe that this season is a moment where you spread love and you just make other people happy as well?
Yeah, so as I said, you see, it's a season of love. The Senate President, of course, is very right to say sharing, in giving. You know, the Christians will say, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten. When did he give? It's in Christmas. It's the memoriam of that we are celebrating today, that God actually gave a savior to the world. And if we want to look at it from that aspect, you should also try to make sacrifices of giving, especially to the needy, like the president said. And especially at a time like this, we should remember that concept of giving to the society, giving to the needy, because a lot of people consider this time as a time of joy, and associated to joy is actually eating and drinking, like I told Sifwan.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the money to buy food, if you don't have the money to buy drinks, if you don't have the money to take your family out, then you may not really feel that this is the season. You may not really feel, have that sense of belonging, of participation in a season like this. So it is of utmost importance that people that are well placed in the society recognize the economic situation of the country and give more to the needy, such that your neighbors, everyone, will feel the essence of this time. And to tell you, when we were growing up, the society wasn't really like this. I remember in those days, my parents used to cook and package food to the neighbors, their neighbors, and we'd also be receiving food from the neighbors as well. There used to be this exchange of food. That is before the society changed to what it is today, and that people don't more trust each other. Trust was a very important part of our society, and of course, people were more, that collectively, that sense of belonging, that sense of togetherness, cohesion in the society was stronger then. And I wish we get back to that level where we are of.
Okay, Mr. Mago, talking about giving, you know, we had some well-to-do Nigerians who were actually giving out gifts, I think in Anambra and then Ibadan. There was this stampede that a lot of people lost their life in the process of going to get these items. What word of wisdom would you have for people like that, and let's say we commiserate with those that lost loved ones during this period?
Apart from that being a signpost to the prevalent level of poverty that we have in our society today, because if you look back, it used to appear as an abomination for you to fight for food, to struggle for food, and here we are today as if we are in a war situation, struggling for essential commodities in our nation. If we have this culture of imbibing a systematic way of doing things, it would go a long way to help us, such that if you have something to give to a people, you sit down and plan and make it work out in a manner that you don't have that kind of confusion. So it just tells us that we have flaws in our society that we need to sit back to address. It shouldn't be so. It's a good idea. It was a good initiative to give out those items, but it should be well planned. Some time ago, we talked about recruitment. You remember how people were stampeded in this stadium because they were going for recruitment. It shouldn't be so. We should have a society that we plan out things and we see how we execute our plans without flaws.
Well, how I tend to see that indeed it was a wholesome initiative that was intended for good, but how important is it to reflect on the nature of the society we live in, to understand what the people are going through, how they tend to reason, especially when you look at the realities on ground, you tend to, you just understand that the people at this point are apprehensive. They are almost too eager when they get to experience or hear of events of that nature coming up. So there has to be proper planning. What's the place of proper planning in events of this nature so that you understand that indeed the people are hungry? So you're definitely going to see some sort of very huge level or tendency of people wanting to, be first. And in that situation, it could lead to something very untold, like the ones we're talking about.
Planning is key. You see, we need to build a culture that promotes certain values in us. Part of it is the value of discipline. I remember sometime in the past, you used to hear of a situation, what did they call it, operation? There was something about discipline that was taught by this National Orientation Agency, that you have to queue. Wherever you go to the bank, you queue. Just that sense of discipline, I think we are losing a lot of those values. Political system should try to bring it back.
The war against indiscipline.
War against indiscipline. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Yeah, and you see, things began to work in a certain way, and people used to go to a place without being told. You see them queuing up for something. If we had sustained that culture, these stampede issues, we wouldn't be having them, because people will comply. But you see, that also brings to the forefront the aspect of the citizens trusting government, such that if government comes up to say, we have 5,000 items available, and you look around, it's only 4,000 people, people will not need to struggle for it. It even is reflective of our everyday society. You go for programs, you see people struggling for programs. You go for events, you see people struggling for programs. Last weekend, somebody pulled the program out of my hand. And you just have to be wondering, what kind of culture, what are we going to leave behind as a legacy for our children? It calls to attention that we need to work more on our value system, such that we would eradicate some of these things. It would help us a lot.
Discipline and proper planning. Recently, I think just over the weekend or last week, there was this a retreat that was held at the Godswill Akpabio's International Stadium, of a religious body having a retreat there. So you could see the level of organization, the planning. In fact, before they left that premises, they swept the place and arranged it. Everybody, over 30,000 people, it's 30,000 sitting capacity, but the level of organization, the planning, the discipline that came into play, I started asking myself, probably we should go and learn from this for how they go about doing this, because it's like we are losing touch of the whole thing.
Yeah, good you notice that. It is not as if Nigeria, everyone is completely indisciplined in the nation. You have organizations, even in the private sector, there are some organizations that you go to, you see a prevalent culture in that environment, and it's very different from another organization. Churches, schools, but we should do more, because, of course, if you asked me, you only have, maybe I'll just guess, maybe about 30% of that in our society today. So if we could improve to a level that we could have 60% and above, it would now be that you can influence other organizations and other citizens to begin to imbibe such discipline, and every part of the society will benefit from it.
Mr. Marvel, let's turn our sights on some of the initiatives that some state governments in the Niger Delta region have been able to come up with. Most recent is Rivers State. We understand that the Rivers State Governor, Siminalayi Fubara, has extended warm Christmas greetings to the people of the state and Nigerians, urging them to embrace peace, unity and love during the festive season and beyond. He called on citizens to use the occasion for deep reflection, prayer and commitment to building a more peaceful, united and progressive society. This was contained in a statement issued by the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor, Nelson Chukwudi, and sent to newsmen. in his direct words. He said, "Let us remain steadfast in hope and unity as we build a brighter future together." The close quote. Meanwhile, the governor Fubara has approved the sum of 100,000 naira for civil servants, public servants, and pensioners in the state. The approval was communicated in a statement that was signed and released by the state's head of service, George Nweke, on Tuesday. Dr. Nweke said the approval, which was given on Monday, is to enable the workers and senior citizens have a fulfilled Christmas celebration. And this is the second time, according to reports, that the administration of Fubara has done this for the civil servants in the state. Well, Mr. Asian, well, in Akwa Ibom, we already know of the number where the governor had promised to pay civil servants an extra month for Christmas. And here we are having a different scenario in Rivers State, 100,000 naira across board. And it is quite commendable. What's your opinion on state governments or federal government, as the case may be, trying to reach out in such a time, especially we know the realities on ground?
The initiative is highly commendable, whether it has to do with the 13-month payment of His Excellency Governor Omoino, or it has to do with a flat rate as is being done with the Rivers State government is doing for the civil servants. You see, what touched me most in the Rivers State one is the aspect of recognizing the pensioners, because of course these people, they need a lot of money for their medical care. They need a lot of money for their sustenance. And the governor remembered them at a time like this. It's highly commendable. Then when you see governments injecting this kind of money at a season like this, it means that they are sensitive to the needs of citizens, that truly times are hard and citizens really need every kobo, every naira that could get to them to make them sail through the time. I don't see it as just for the celebration season. You see, you have people that will receive that 100,000 naira from the governor and invest it in a business. You see people that will utilize that money for highly productive ventures that would help them to sustain their family and get put their lives together. By January, children will be going back to school. These are monies that could help to buy exercise book, buy one thing or the other for the children. So it's highly commendable. It is not just a gift as we may be seeing it, but it is something that will eventually help the economy, because when you inject such monies into the system, you are on the other hand helping to touch on nano businesses and SMEs, because if you start selling groundnut or selling bole with 100,000 naira, it would help you and your family. And once you start pushing up purchasing power of citizens like that, they will be able to patronize businesses. And since this thing is like a cycle, then eventually you are also helping the economy of your local government, the economy of your state, and the economy of your nation. It adds to the GDP eventually.
All right, Mr. Marvel, you know, this is a time where there are a lot of people involved themselves in spending. Now, 100,000 has been given by Rivers State. The Akwa Ibom, so they equally have their own. But this period, a lot of people, they call it a woof. So they tend to spend almost everything this Christmas. And when it gets to January, you know, they're empty. What kind of advice do you have for them in terms of financial management?
See, from when I belong there.
You belong there?
I belong there.
No.
Well, you had already said, you had already hinted that the season is about eating and drinking.
So we should finish everything and then.
But on a serious note, you see, that's why when monies like this come into people's hand at a time like this, I remember those days we used to structure salary administration for organizations. We used to push in a lot of money to a time like this. And I used to say to organizations, you also need to do counseling. You also need to organize workshops, financial workshops for people to understand that these monies that are coming in block like this is to, one, take care of, because you would also observe a certain level of inflation at a time like this. In those days, I think it still applies till now. If you want to take a flight from Lagos to you at a time like this, you pay more. You want to travel by road, you pay more. You want to buy rice, the cost of rice increases. So that inflationary trend at this period, you want your employees to stabilize themselves and concentrate on their jobs. So you make more money get into their hands
Well,
to take care of the inflation.
Sorry,